Alright, welcome back everybody to the fourth part out of six on our drawing here. So we are finishing up the chain and the muzzle. We also will be doing the halter, and then we will also finish the mane and the forelock as well. So with that being said, I'm gonna go over a couple things that I may have struggled with this. I feel like that's a good topic that a lot of us artists tend to avoid because, like, we don't want to say that we struggle, but we do struggle. Everyone struggles. So my struggle was counting these chains. I got the side chain right, the bottom hook, like all of those are good, but the chain around the nose, I thought it kind of looked weird, after I got done, I was like, let me go through and actually count these, because, like, my brain doesn't compute with, like, when something is that kind of small, and I was like, oh, I had at some point made one of the chains, like, a little bit bigger, like, two of them a little bit bigger. You might be able to see which ones they are than what they were supposed to be, because there was supposed to be an extra chain on that around the nose part there. And, well, I uh, deleted that chain unintentionally. So, but I made it work. If you don't have the photo, the exact photo I used, you're not gonna know. You're really not gonna notice it. But it bothered me of, like, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing so good, and then it just felt like it just went kapooey. So, but plus side is I feel like I really started to get this halter thing down. So what I did was I layered as much as I could with all the colors I wanted to use, what I saw, and I knew that my first couple layers needed to be lighter colors so that they kind of protected the paper from being bled in when I did the mineral spirits. So when I went back through and I scraped away some of the top darker layers, you could see underneath of it the stitching pattern, and that was actually really fun. I really enjoyed doing that. That was fun. I almost got addictive. I just wanted to, like, make a whole thing and just start doing all sorts of stitching design. So anyway, and I also felt like I got maybe a little bit better planning on this nameplate. The nameplates were still a struggle because honestly, when it's kind of that small, especially when I'm limited on what hard pencils I have, like, because I a lot of mine are soft core pencils, it gets a little tricky to get that really finite line. So I was tempted to use, um, like a really thin paintbrush and just paint it on there. I was like, no, this is colored pencil. Though no one would subject me to, oh, it's not a colored pencil drawing if you use paint. But I also didn't want to whip out the paint either, like watercolor or something. And then if I mess up, then that's like, it's like I know how to get up the colored pencil. I don't know how to get up watercolor or otherwise. So, but it's alright. I feel like it turned out okay. It wasn't too bad. Filling in all the other little spots, like I said, you just want to plan out. I'm looking for the word because it can be a vein, it can be anything. So depending on what animal you're drawing, it could just be muscle definition. Uh, It's just that it catches the light differently because it's like a little bump out, or maybe it's concave and it's really dark on, like, on the inside, or the shadow has a deeper richness to it than all the other ones on there. So just keep an eye out for, like, what your drawing is. And then sometimes, like, especially if you're using a iPad or your phone or something that you can, like, zoom in on the picture, there are things that your camera on those apps are going to create that aren't actually there, that you're going to try to put in your drawing. So zoom back out, take a look at what it looks like far away, and then look at your drawing from, relatively good distance. You don't have to stand at the back of the room, but just like a normal, maybe a foot to foot and a half, 3 foot, like just like how you normally would sit back and look at it. Just step back and be like, okay, this looks right. on the paper. This looks right to my eye. And if you look on your phone, you're like, huh, it does kind of look weird on the phone. It's probably because it's the phone's doing. It has nothing to do with your eyes. That's the other tricky part too. Is like I feel like today's artists, if we do use references from our phones, because that's what I use. It's kind of nice because I don't have to look at the whole picture. I kind of just focus on a smaller ish area and make it right for that area. But the trick is to zoom back out and look at the overall picture. Okay, does this what I'm using here correlate with everywhere else that I have been working on? Are the colors similar? Does it look like it matches? Like, does a horse look together? Like, the cheek isn't from one horse to another, you know what I mean? Or vice versa, like if you're drawing a human, does that cheek look like it could be realistic enough to that human I'm drawing? Or is it to like another human? Like, to see what I'm saying? So like you wouldn't want to draw a pug with Doberman ears unless for some reason that pug had Doberman ears. If that makes sense, right? So just take a look, scaling wise and whatnot. Having a good reference photo does help. Having a detailed reference photo helps. But so yeah, so I feel like we have that struggle with today's artists is that we get so caught up in what it looks like on the phone versus like if you print it out, the printer gets rid of all of that screen brightness. We cannot recreate that screen, how bright the screen, the light is its own source of magic. The colored pencils can create light, but it's never going to be as bright as like a source of light. Does that make sense? So like an actual electrical light outsource. And sometimes I feel like that's where I struggle with because it's like my white isn't as white as this, but it's like, but this is white. Like this is like the white colored pencil. Nothing is truly white. I mean, on a screen you can put white on, right? You can even bleach something to be quote unquote pure white, but even sometimes a lot of our papers aren't white. They're an off creamy color. And you don't really realize it until you put computer paper, which is the most white paper I think I've ever had, next to it. So, anyway, just food for thought. If you guys go out there and you think, oh, I can't get white, don't worry. We all struggle. There are tricks around it. You just got to know that what your white is white, and then you have to go with, okay, this is my white, not the phone brightness white. Oh, also turning your phone brightness down a little bit, that'll help. Okay, so we're moving on to the forelock here. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent. Um, what I did was I mapped out a lot of my lighter colors first, and then I went in a little bit with the mineral spirits, and then I detailed out very slowly some of the darker colors, just going in and just adding that because his foretop, it is black, but if I've seen, I know horses. I'm a horse person, and black horses get bleached out very easily because horses like to be outside, and you gotta turn them out so they can eat grass. And you can put blankets and all that stuff on fly sheets to help protect from the sun bleaching, but it just happens, especially if they're always training or if the foretop is always out and about, it's going to get sun bleached. So the strands of the ends of his forelock here are sun bleached. So that's why he doesn't have a full black forelock. Though you could easily just make it a little bit more black if you want it more black. It wouldn't be unright to do that, but I just like following the reference photo. So, but you can easily do that, definitely. I'm tempted to go back and do that, but it looks right realistic wise for my brain because that's typically what I would see on a black horse that is in consistent work or does outside work like this. Anyway, and again, that the halter, it was fun to do. Doing the little stitching on it, I feel like I got pretty good with Secretariat, and then when I went and did this one, I was like, yeah. Oh, okay, so now we're getting into that kind of little sun bleached spot right behind his head there. That's another spot. So the all of the top parts that hit the sun the hardest, the longest, are gonna have some sun bleaching to it. And you can even see a little bit on his face there. So that kind of little brown spot, yes, I know it's like Slew is a black horse, but he has some sun bleaching. So this was actually kind of a really cool subject to do. Really tested me by patience with the dark colors. I honestly was like, ah, I'm going to be using a lot of black. I did use black, but I actually used a lot more like bronzy colors, and that helped. The bronzy definitely helped bring out the shine and the black on this particular subject. Ah, sorry, I'm thirsty. Okay, so working on the neck, um, focusing on the direction of the fur will help with your neck because it was a little it wasn't it was clear but it wasn't quite clear on this one because it was like the photo started to fade or get a little disorientated with the neck here. So luckily I had secretary already done. The neck structures of a horse are going to be very similar to each other, and unless, especially like thoroughbreds, they're very similar. So the muscles structure is going to be similar, but some might have more built out muscles and then others or whatnot. But at least, like I got these guys all looking the same way, so the muscle structure is going to be similar, like where the throat, the the thorax, the throat's going to attach, and all that stuff. So this was probably again I would have been finished with this a little bit long ago, but this took me a little bit longer than it did Secretariat, and I actually did go back through and touch him up a little bit too once I got this done. And once I get all of them finished, the last horse here, I will have uh, I would have gone back in and the little gap between the horses. I left that there because I wasn't sure what adjustments I was going to have to do to that side of the horse's face, and it would have been really difficult to have erased something that I semi permanently put down on paper. So if you see that little gap, it's not staying there. And I also have a plan for the background. So I am doing a full background. I think I might do a separate video for the background and maybe go over more in depth of a couple things that I chose to do. It might be like a quick, like a really fast time lapse, just to throw it on there. Maybe a slow couple, like minute here or two, so you guys can watch and see what I do. But we'll see how busy I am. I feel like I always say that in the videos, like, oh yeah, the next video I'll do this, and then I totally, totally forget what I was gonna do. Life is great. So anyway, besides that, my dog's doing great. He's loving this weather. It's a little bit warmer outside. And I really love my new computer. It's so nice. I got it it loads things faster, the video editing goes quicker, it doesn't take forever for or like the video does the player thing doesn't crash. So it's really nice. And I'm just going in and touching things up around here. The last little part is just doing the mane and getting the uh, what's the word? Back highlights on the horse. So like the reflections. So like yes, there is a shadow, but there's usually something always reflecting back off of like the underside of something, especially if that is like a lighter color or like the sun's reflecting off of the house and then it reflects underneath your chin even though there's a shadow on your chin, there's like a little hint of reflection at or the side of your face or whatever. So same thing with these guys. The underside of their neck they have just to make it look 3D. If you put a little bit of a highlight underneath the throat latch there and the chin area and a little bit of a muzzle, it gives that more 3D effect than kind of like a flat concave. Because remember, the darker the shadows, the more behind it's going to look, or onto the paper it's going to look like in depth. So if you add just a little bit of that backlight, it helps bring it forward. So, and that's what I go through and I do with several different lighter colored pencils. Anyway, thanks again, guys, for watching. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great time and keep an eye out for the the last two parts of the of this horse series. Thanks again, guys. Bye.